Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a cybersecurity alert about a threat that's making a pretty surprising comeback. And it targets something a lot of us really trust: two-factor authentication. So, let me just ask you this straight up, especially if you're running a Fortinet VPN. Are you 100% sure your two-factor authentication is actually doing its job? The reason I'm asking is that Fortinet just dropped a pretty serious warning. There's a critical flaw, and get this. It was first discovered years ago that is being actively abused out in the wild, right now. This isn't just some theory, it's a real active threat that's giving attackers a way in, completely sidestepping your security efforts.
Okay, so how in the world does this even happen? How can an attacker just waltz past a security measure like 2FA? Let's take a look at the blueprint of this attack.
So, the bad guy in our story has a name. It's CVE 2020-12812. And really, at its core, this whole thing is about what's called improper authentication. It all comes down to a super simple, but absolutely critical, mix-up in how two different systems read a username.
And here it is. This is the heart of the whole problem. Your FortiGate device, that's your front door, is really picky. It's case-sensitive. To it, lowercase J Smith and uppercase J Smith are two totally different people. But then you have your remote LDAP server, your backup directory, and it's a lot more chill. It's case-insensitive. To that server, they are the exact same person. And that tiny difference, that is the crack in the armor.
So this mismatch creates this perfect four-step loophole. An attacker just enters the username, but with a different capital letter. The FortiGate looks for a local user to kick off the 2FA process, but since it's so picky, it doesn't find an exact match and it fails. Then it fails over to its next option, a secondary policy pointing to that laid-back, case-insensitive LDAP server. The LDAP server sees J Smith, recognizes it as a valid user, checks the password, and lets the attacker right in. The 2FA prompt never even gets triggered. That means an attacker with just a password can get full access to your internal network, bypassing what was supposed to be your strongest line of defense.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from Fortinet's own advisory spells it out perfectly. A simple change in capitalization, J Smith, it doesn't matter, that's all it takes for the FortiGate to look past the correct security policy and basically open up a back door.
So okay, that's the how. Now for the big question. Are you at risk? Let's figure out if your network might be one of the vulnerable ones, because this flaw, it doesn't affect everyone.
Your system is only at risk if you're hitting this very specific three-part configuration. First, you have local users on your FortiGate with 2FA enabled. Second, those same users also exist over in a group on that remote LDAP server. And third, you're actually using that LDAP group in a firewall policy, probably for VPN access. If you check all three of those boxes, yeah, your door's unlocked.
All right, let's get to the most important part of this whole explainer, the exact steps you need to take right now to slam that door shut and lock it down. So the fix is actually a simple command line entry, but, and this is super important, you have to use the right one for your version of FortiOS. For older versions, you're going to use set username case sensitivity disable. For the newer ones, it's slightly different, set username sensitivity disable. Getting this command right is absolutely critical to closing this vulnerability.
Now, what this little command does is simple, but it's powerful. It basically tells the FortiGate device to become case insensitive, just like the LDAP server. So now when someone logs in as J Smith, the FortiGate sees it as identical to J Smith, finds the right local user, and correctly triggers that 2FA prompt. Just like that, the loophole is closed.
And hey, for an extra layer of security, here's a pro tip straight from Fortinet. Just ask yourself, do you even need that secondary LDP group in your firewall policy? If it isn't absolutely essential for your operations, think about removing it. That eliminates this specific attack vector completely. No failover path means no bypass. Simple as that.
And if you look through your logs and find any evidence that users have gotten in without being prompted for 2FA, the advice is clear and urgent. Get on the phone with Fortinet support, and just as important, reset all of your admin and VPN user passwords and credentials immediately. Don't wait.
Now that we've covered the fix, let's zoom out for a second. What's the bigger lesson here for all of us when it comes to just good cybersecurity hygiene?
I mean, think about this. This vulnerability is from 2020. That's 5 years old. It's a really powerful reminder that in cybersecurity, old bugs don't just die. They often just wait for the right moment to come back and bite you.
So the crucial takeaway here is that attackers are constantly scanning for these older, well-documented weaknesses. They're betting that organizations have forgotten about them or maybe never got around to patching them in the first place. It's often way easier for them to exploit a known flaw than to go find a brand new zero-day exploit.
Which leaves us with one final critical question to think about as we wrap this up. This case wasn't about some new sophisticated attack. It was about an old ghost in the machine. And it makes you wonder, right? What other forgotten vulnerabilities might be hiding in your own systems, just waiting for someone to find them?